Good morning and welcome to today's lesson. I'm Deborah Fraley and we are on A Course in Miracles Lesson 66, followed by a light language activation. Lesson 66 is My happiness and my function are one. Number 1. You have surely noticed an emphasis throughout our recent lessons on the connection between fulfilling your function and achieving happiness. This is because you do not really see the connection. Yet, there is more than a connection between them. They are the same. Their forms are different, but their connection is completely one. Number 2, the ego does constant battle with the Holy Spirit on the fundamental question of what your function is. So does it do constant battle with the Holy Spirit about what your happiness is. It is not a two-way battle. The ego attacks, and the Holy Spirit does not respond. He knows what your function is. He knows that it is your happiness. Number 3, today we will try to go past this wholly meaningless battle and arrive at the truth about your function. We will not engage in senseless arguments about what it is. We will not become hopelessly involved in defining happiness and determining the means for achieving it. We will not indulge with the ego by listening to its attacks on truth. We will merely be glad that we can find out what truth is. Number 4, our longer practice period today has as its purpose your acceptance of the fact that not only is there a very real connection between the function God gave you and your happiness, but that they are actually identical. God gives you only happiness. Therefore, the function He gave you must be happiness, even if it appears to be different. Today's exercises are an attempt to go beyond these differences in appearance and recognize a common content where it exists in truth. Number 5, begin the 10 to 15 minute practice period by reviewing these thoughts. God gives me only happiness. He has given my function to me. Therefore, my function must be happiness. Try to see the logic in this sequence. Even if you do not yet accept the conclusion, it is only if the first 2 thoughts are wrong that the conclusion could be false. Let us then think about the premise for a while as we are practicing. Number 6, the first premise is that God gives you only happiness. This could be false, of course, but in order to be false, it is necessary to define God as something He is not. Love cannot be evil, and what is not happiness is evil. God cannot give what He does not have, and He cannot have what He is not. Unless God gives you only happiness, He must be evil. And it is this definition of Him you are believing if you do not accept the first premise. Number 7, the second premise is that God has given you your function. We have seen that there are only 2 parts of your mind. One is ruled by the ego and is made up of illusions. The other is the home of the Holy Spirit, where truth abides. There are no other guides but these to choose between, and no other outcomes possible as a result of your choice, but the fear that the ego always engenders and the love that the Holy Spirit always offers to replace it. Number 8, thus, it must be that your function is established by God through His voice, or is made by the ego which you have made to replace Him, which is true. Unless God gave your function to you, it must be the gift of the ego. Does the ego really have gifts to give? Being itself an illusion and offering only illusion of gifts? Number 9, think about this during the longer practice period today. Think also about the many forms the illusion of your function has taken in your mind and the many ways in which you tried to find salvation under the ego's guidance. Did you find it? Were you happy? Did they bring you peace? We need great honesty today. Remember the outcomes fairly, and consider also whether it was ever reasonable to expect happiness from anything the ego ever proposed. Yet the ego is the only alternative to the Holy Spirit's voice. Number 10, you will listen to madness or hear the truth. Try to make this choice as you think about the premises on which your conclusion rests. We can share in this conclusion, but in no other, for God Himself shares it with us. Today's idea is another giant stride in the perception of the same as the same, and the different as the different. On one side stand all illusions. All truth stands on the other. Let us try today to realize that only the truth is true. Number 11, in the shorter practice periods, which would be most helpful today if undertaken twice an hour, this form of the application is suggested. My happiness and function are one because God has given me both. It will not take more than a minute and possibly less to repeat these words slowly and think about them a little while as you say them. So that was lesson 66. My happiness and my function are one. I'm now going to channel the light language activation for lesson 66. Ai te toko wa iti. I te watakata utu, watakata ito, watakata utu koto, watakata ito, watakata ukua. E te ukua iti, utu wakata ukua iti, te toko wa titi, ukua hiti, ukua hiti, ukua ta titi, ukua. Ito tutu ukua iti, ukua iti. Ukua hiti, ukua hiti, ukua iti, ukua hiti. Ukua iti, ukua iti, ukua iti, wakato hukua iti, ukua hiti. Ukua iti, ukua hiti, ukua hiti. Thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe so that others may benefit in the teachings. Namaste.